What's happening, Packer fans? Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. My name's Andy Herman. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your Sunday to join me here. It is going to be a major week upcoming as we get closer and closer to the first day of the new league year. There's going to be more releases, more restructures. We're going to have certainly some free agent signings across the league. There's going to be a ton of movement this week, but I think there remains one major question for Green Bay, and that's with Aaron Rodgers and what do they ultimately do with his contract, if anything. So that's going to be my main topic for today. But before I get there, it's worth looking at what Green Bay's done so far to try to get at or around that salary cap number that they need to be at as the league year kicks off this upcoming Wednesday. So we know that they've already restructured Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, and Devin Funchess. They've released John Lovett, Rick Wagner, as well as Christian Kirksey. So those have been some moves that they made already. And then on Saturday as well, they also restructured Billy Turner's contract. So we don't know the full details of Turner's contract, at least as I'm recording this. So what that means is that it's likely that Green Bay's right at or around the number that they need to be at in order to kick off the league year this upcoming Wednesday, and technically under the salary cap. So great news. Packers got under the cap and everything's good to go, right? Not exactly. So Green Bay still has a lot of work to do. And just to give you an idea of that, right now, and for those who aren't familiar with the 51-man roster rule, up until the regular season starts, right before then, like when cutdowns happen, you only have to account for the top 51 players on your roster. Not sure why that is, to be honest, but for whatever reason, you only have to account for the top 51 to be under the salary cap. Once the season starts, your top 53 count. So right now they're going to get under at the salary cap deadline this upcoming Wednesday, right at that 51 player mark. But as the offseason continues and as they get closer to the season, they still have to get under to pay 53 players. They have to pay their practice squad. They're going to still have to tender their restricted free agents, including Bobby Tunyon, likely a second round pick, likely around $3 million. That's going to happen this upcoming week. They have to have slush money in their funds so that if injuries happen through the season, they can add guys to their roster. You usually need about $4 to $5 million in season to kind of, have some extra funds available if you need to make some of those moves. You need to be able to sign your draft class. You need to make room for any potential free agent signings and signing bonuses that you're going to give to, undrafted rookies and things like that. So point being, Green Bay is far from done. Even with all of these restructures that they've done, even with all the work that Russ Ball and Brian Gutekunst have done over the course of the last couple weeks, they're right about even. They still have a significant amount of work to do if they actually want to be able to sign anyone, much less just be able to do the bare minimum of draft class, Bobby Tunyon, filling out a roster, etc. So still going to be some major moves upcoming this week. And we all know the names that are, at this point that could be restructured or changed to get more money available. And there's three main ones, right? An extension for Devontae Adams, either a restructure or an extension for Zadarius Smith, and either a restructure or an extension for Aaron Rodgers. And by far, and they could do other things too. They could release a Dean Lowry. They could make some other changes. Maybe a Mason Crosby does something. Who knows, right? But for the most part, Adams, Zadarius, Aaron Rodgers are the ways that you're looking to make some major money to be able to allow yourself to sign some free agents and get enough under the cap where you can actually operate throughout the entirety of the 2021-2022 season. So with everything that's happened so far, with all the restructures and changes that they've made, the releases that they've done, with everything that's upcoming, free agency and the draft and whatever they do there is literally nothing as important or as interesting that will happen this offseason than what happens with Aaron Rodgers' contract. Period. End of story. And the biggest reason for that is no matter what they do, whether it is nothing, whether it is something small, or whether it's something much bigger, it will send a message to somebody no matter what. And what I mean by that is, we have to look at Aaron Rodgers' current contract first. So right now, the way that it's set up, he's set to be 38 this upcoming season. He's going to make about $37.5 million. Next year, he'll be 39. He's set to make about almost $40 million, $39.9 million with a $17.2 million dead cap. And then when he's 40, that's a major number, 40 years old in 2 years. So what, 2023? he will only make $28.3 million, but more importantly, he will only have $2.85 million in dead cap. So what that means is Green Bay has an out in his contract after this year, but they have a massive out when he is set to turn 40 in 2 years from now. And there's a real chance that Green Bay doesn't want to mess with that too much, that they don't want to be able to not get out of his contract at age 40, that they don't want to extend him past that into his 41 and 42 year old years of that deal. So there's real benefit here for Green Bay to say, hey, if we think Jordan Love can legitimately be the guy, we want to be able to get out of this Aaron Rodgers contract in a couple years when he turns 40 years old, whether that be via trade or release or whatever. There's real potential value there for Green Bay. But nobody wants to hear that, right? Certainly Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to hear that. He wants to make sure, and he has said very clearly, that he retires a Green Bay Packer. And oh, by the way, he's the MVP of the league. And oh, by the way, the guy who just won the Super Bowl is well into his 40s, just restructured his deal again, so his team could go out and sign the players that they want to sign, like a Rob Gronkowski, an Antonio Brown, a Shaq Barrett, a Chris Godwin, and so on and so forth, Levante David, so that they can keep the band together and make another run and keep that window open. Patrick Mahomes just restructured his contract so that they can stay competitive and try to put a team around Patrick Mahomes these next couple of years to try to make another run at the Super Bowl. And, Patrick Mahomes has a large prime ahead of him still. But while this Chiefs current window is still open with, Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones and Honey Badger and Andy Reid and so on and so forth. Travis Kelce, another one. So you're seeing it around the league that these top-end quarterbacks are restructuring their deals to free up cap space. Aaron Rodgers wants that because not only does that help the Packers win this season, also it makes that be more guaranteed money in the next couple years, which makes it harder and harder for Green Bay to get out of that deal and makes it much more likely that Rodgers remains a Packer. And ideally, if you're Aaron Rodgers and his agent, you would love to see an extension even past that, which again guarantees it even more and makes it much harder for Green Bay to make any sort of transition into Jordan Love. And Aaron Rodgers has been very, clear about this. He wants to remain a Packer. He wants to have his contract either, set up or extended to make it very clear that he is the guy in the next upcoming season. And if Green Bay decides to do nothing, if they decide that they're just going to keep Aaron Rodgers as is, and maybe they restructure or extend Za'Darius instead and extend Devontae instead and just keep Rodgers as is, whether it's intended or not, that is a massive message to Aaron Rodgers that we still want to be able to get out of your contract either next year or at minimum the following year. It doesn't mean that we're going to. It doesn't mean that we're going to get out of your deal, but we want that flexibility. So that sends a message. On the flip side, if they do decide to quote unquote go all in and make a major restructure or extension to Aaron Rodgers and make him the quarterback for the foreseeable future, that sends a major message to Jordan Love and his agent that this is not your team, not now, not in the foreseeable future. And we're going to have to come to a crossroads at some point. And maybe if you're Jordan Love and his agent, you can live with that for this year as you take another year as a backup to Aaron Rodgers and things like that. But if they start seeing a contract that looks like, for Aaron Rodgers, that looks like there is no window for Jordan Love in the next 3 or 4 years, you got to think that that could potentially be an issue at some point. And whether it's intended or not, whether they want to or not, that sends a major message to Jordan Love and his future of the Packers as well. So there is a major message here no matter what. And then, of course, Green Bay could somewhat go in the middle ground, right? And I think this is ultimately probably what they do. I think they're going to probably take a look at his $6.8 million roster bonus and restructure that. I think they're going to do something no matter what. I don't think they're just going to keep things the status quo. But let's say they just take that $6.8 million roster bonus and they, move that around and make that into a signing bonus instead. That'll save Green Bay about $4 million this year to go out and spend a little bit of money or just have enough for a practice squad, things like that. but it doesn't change the ability to get out of the contract in 2023. It would just raise his dead cap to $5 million instead of basically $2 million in 2023. Still something that Green Bay can easily get out of at that time. So that still sends a message that, hey, we're not going all in now. We're not mortgaging the future. We're just going to move a little bit so that we can get under the cap and so on and so forth. And it still sends a major message to Aaron Rodgers that, hey, we want the flexibility to get out of your deal at some point. Now, if Green Bay wanted to go in the opposite direction and clear space, they could clear up to $13.6 million in salary cap space by doing a major restructure for Aaron Rodgers. There's probably more they could do if they extended and added, auto void years towards the end and things like that. There's probably even more, but even an aggressive restructure now could save up to $13.6 million. But what you have to remember as well, if you're Green Bay, even if you were to do that, the players that you'd be able to sign with that money are going to have to be 1-year mercenary type players because you are running out of future cap space. You've got Bakhtiari and Kenny Clark. Jair Alexander needs a deal. You probably are extending Devontae Adams. You've got Zadarius Smith. You've already borrowed a ton of money from future caps to pay this cap. Like, there are a lot of players. And you're going to eventually need to pay, Elton Jenkins and potentially Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage. Like, there's only going to be so much money available, and especially next year. You're creating a massive headache for yourself even next year as well by doing this. So if all of a sudden you go out and you sign another major free agent to like a 5-year deal with major money in years 2 and 3, you're creating massive headaches and massive problems for you in future salary cap. So even if Rodgers did clear a ton of money, you're going to have to look at mercenary type players that are taking 1 year, $7 million, 1 year, $6 million type of, deals to just come in 1 year, try to win a Super Bowl, and then that's going to be it because they just don't have the future salary cap space to make a big long-term deal with one of those type of players if you're borrowing from the future with Rodgers and Adams and Zadarius and Preston and so on and so forth. There's only so much that you can do to borrow from future salary cap. So what will ultimately Green Bay do? Let's start by going over what we know. We know that Aaron Rodgers wants to retire a Packer. We know that he just won the MVP of the league and is deserving of pretty much anything that he wants at this point for the most part. We know that the Packers have a core roster to win right now if they can just add a couple key pieces to their team, which is aided potentially this season by an Aaron Rodgers restructure. We know that they don't have a ton of space this year or for the remainder of Rodgers' contract over the course of the next 2 years to really make a true all-in sort of move. That happened in 2019 with Zadarius and Preston and Amos and Billy Turner. They don't have the ability to do something like that again. So we know that as well. And we also know that they have Jordan Love on their roster. And at some point, they're going to have to make a major decision that will alter the remainder of this franchise over the next 10 years with what they decide to do or don't do with Jordan Love. What we don't know is we don't know how they feel about Jordan Love. They may have saw him last year and said, holy shit, we got this right. This is the guy. He is going to lead the next decade plus of the Packers. They may not know. They may be like, he showed some signs, but he also has a lot of work to do. And we don't know if he's going to ever reach his ceiling. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but we just don't know. Or maybe he looked like shit. Like, we have no idea. Maybe he just looked like this is not the guy at all. We simply don't know how they feel about Jordan Love at this point. We also don't know how they feel about Aaron Rodgers and how, and if he can realistically play at a high level for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We just don't know how they feel about that. We don't know about his, how they feel about his medicals. We don't know how they feel about everything. We just don't know how they feel about a long-term future for Aaron Rodgers with the age that he's at. And we also don't know how willing they are to mortgage the future. My guess, and probably your guess, is that they don't want to mortgage it a ton, but they may be willing to do a little bit to try and win now with Aaron Rodgers. But we just don't know how far they're willing to go with that. And that's what's going to be so interesting. All of this that I've discussed, the message that it sends to Rodgers, the message that it sends to Jordan Love, the message that it sends to the rest of the team, how they feel about Love, how they feel about Rodgers, all of this is going to have major connotations with what they do or don't do with Aaron Rodgers this upcoming week. So the last thing that we know is that whatever they do is going to be read into in every way, shape, or form. And it's impossible not to. I'm not saying that as, somebody that's a, quote unquote part of the media and wants a good story or whatever. Like, it's impossible not to read into it in some capacity when there's a major decision to be made with either Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. And this ultimately, when last year I wrote prior to the draft, that my worst case scenario was trading up for Jordan Love. And when I wrote post draft, that I didn't understand the window that this creates for the Packers is that as long as you have Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, I don't hate Jordan Love. I think he has the opportunity to be a really good quarterback. Go watch his sophomore tape and you can fall in love as much with Jordan Love in that season as any quarterback coming out of the draft this year, period. His junior tape, not so much. But there is tape that you can watch that you are convinced that he is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. So I don't dislike Jordan Love. But as long as Jordan Love is on the team, it hurts Aaron Rodgers' window. And as long as Aaron Rodgers is on the team, it hurts Jordan Love's window. And you as a GM and as a franchise for the next few years are constantly going to be in a civil war, even if it's just internally within Brian Gutekunst, as to how much should we steal from the Jordan Love years to help Aaron Rodgers now? Or how much should we screw over, in a way, the Aaron Rodgers years now to help and open a window for Jordan Love in the future? And there's no perfect answer to that. There's just not. No matter what, there's something that's you can't straddle that line perfectly. If they could have won a Super Bowl last year, and maybe if they win it this year, then maybe you can get away with having your cake and eat it too. But it makes it very, very difficult because you don't want to go all in now because you might have a future franchise quarterback later. And also you're wasting these cheap years potentially of Jordan Love's contract too, if he is ready to play. So there's so much at stake here. There is a ridiculous amount at stake, and what they decide potentially this week, who knows when it'll come, but potentially what they decide will have major ramifications for the Green Bay Packers, both now and far into the future. So this is a major week upcoming for the Green Bay Packers. Make no mistake about it. What would I do? I don't know. I honestly don't know. And a lot of this is dependent upon how they feel about Jordan Love. And I simply, we haven't been able to see him since training camp. So we just don't know. We never see him in a preseason game. We just don't know how they feel about him. So the decision here is going to be very dependent upon how much they feel he can be the face of the franchise moving forward. But if it's me, my gut feeling is that they'll do a small restructure with Rodgers that still allows them to get out of the deal in a couple years. It frees up some space now, but probably not the ability to go all in and sign a bunch of guys, right or wrong. If it's me, I'm going to try to do everything in my power to open a window this year, and then I'm probably going scorched earth next year, meaning that I'm going to open myself up to a real window this year. I'm going to be able to sign some guys that are going to make us allow us the opportunity to make a real run, knowing that next year that probably means releasing Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith and Adrian Amos and Billy Turner, potentially trading Devontae Adams, potentially trading Aaron Rodgers, and going all scorched earth, and then building a future around Savage and Jenkins and whoever your first round pick this year is, Jordan Love, A.J. Dillon, and that core, Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Keke, so on and so forth, that I'm going to build around that team going forward. But it's going to take us a couple years, probably with Jordan Love at quarterback and maybe some early struggles, maybe some future early picks that I'm going to have to sell off to kind of rebuild and get us back in balance. Because right now, if they keep borrowing from the future into infinity, at some point it's going to continue to catch up. And at some point, it's never going to open up a window for the future if they feel like Jordan Love is the guy. An insanely important week upcoming in just next few weeks. Who knows when, if and when they do something with Rodgers, when that could happen. But the future, the immediate and maybe even far-reaching future of the Packers could very much be in flux with what they do over the course of these next few weeks. And in no way, shape, or form do I believe that's hyperbole. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. That's obviously going to do it. I'll be back tomorrow with a all new edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. Make sure to check out Mike Engage wherever you get audio podcasts. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.